Hey, down. You're from
For your name, what is the name?
Radhika. Radhika?
She will.
All right, so it's 8:05, so we can start now. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the session on a Saturday morning. I know how difficult it is. This is PC here, so we'll be a trainer for this course, and today we'll be going through some of the demo session for the data engineering. So during this session today, for next 44 minutes, I'll be explaining you what exact data engineering is all about and what are the components of it, what exact data engineering does, and how do you can what do you call it? So how do you get how can you get skills, or what are the skills that you need to get into to become a good data engineer? So these are all the things I will be teaching. So myself PC, and I have around 20 plus years of experience in the data world. Right from the day one I am into the data. So I work on the various technologies, right from a legacy SQL server to SSIS, Oracle, Informatica, Data Stage, and SSIS, SSRS, MSBI, MSBI tag, in fact. So then the Data Factory, Data Bricks, Fabric, Snowflake. So yeah, so these are all the technologies I worked on, and from past 7 8 years, I'm actively working in the data engineering system, and regarding the training, so almost from past 10 15 years I'm teaching various technologies, and this data engineering almost 4 5 years I completed, handling around 30 to 40 batches, I think. So trained around 1,000 plus students. Yeah, so that's about myself. And yeah, so let's start the session quickly. And yeah, so this session I'll try to go through as basic as possible, as because like some of the students might be fresher, some of the students might be like might not have enough what do you call exposure to the software field, right? So that is the reason I'll go through some of the basic things. All right. All right, so let's start. So data engineering, let's start with the data engineering. So does anyone know what is data? Can anyone tell me what is data? Just like basic answer, whatever you understand. Need not to be like a bookish definition.
Information that can make sense or that gives you answers.
Okay, great. Yes. Information which gives answer or which has some significance. That's good. What else? Anything else?
The facts
The
which can be
facts.
stored.
Yeah, which can be, sorry,
Facts which can be stored.
which can be stored. All
Yeah,
right.
stored.
Yes. Yeah. So information, the facts, the information, the fact, anything which can be stored, which can be analyzed is a data. Okay. If I say Vijay, Vijay might not be a data. If I say student Vijay, that might be the data. If I say 50, that might not be the data. A 50 members in the class might be a data. If I say career IT, that does not have any meaning. But a career IT in so much so and so place and is providing the training and so courses, that is the data, right? So whatever information which has a significance and which can be measured is called a data. So in the digital world, since morning to evening, every one of us, we do generate or consume so much of data from morning to evening, right? So because of the digital world, since morning to night, we generate so much of data, isn't it? So can you tell me, any one of you, give an example where exactly we generate the data? Every one of us generate the data, in fact, actually. So can anyone give the example? Where exactly we generate the data in the digital world?
We are doing some text messages.
Very good. Yes, we are giving some text messages in the WhatsApp or any text
Yeah.
message. There we are generating the data. Anyone else? Since morning to night?
Websites, browsers.
Browsers, websites. Very good.
Enterprise applications.
Okay, that is technical, but in general, in the day-to-day life,
Digital payments.
digital payments. Very good.
Mobile
Yes,
applications.
Yes.
smartwatches too.
Yes, very good. Smartwatches. And this through Zoom training as well, which you are joining now
Yes.
because it's getting recorded. And also like,
GPS.
sorry, digital payment, GPay, you're saying.
GPS.
GPS, yes, GPS, yes. The location being tracked and stored in the
Coordinates.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And else anything? And if you're hungry, what do you do?
Search term.
Yes.
Searching.
Very good. And if you're hungry, what do you do?
We eat.
We eat,
What
but
do we-
how? What do you eat? What do you eat? So you order something from Swiggy
Online
or
order.
Zomato. Online order, right? So if you are ordering something, there also transaction being recorded, right? And if you want some ice cream immediately or some what do you call dal or something to home for groceries, you order in Zepto, right? There you are recording a thing, right? And you are going to some friend home, then you don't have bike, but you book a Rapido, then you are generating the data, right? And you are going on your own vehicle and getting the fuel, petrol, and a transaction is being generated, right? And you watch OTT movie, a new movie in the Netflix, there you are generating the data, right? And say suppose you are getting caught in a traffic violation, you are jumping the signal, then what happened? There also a challan will be generated in the background, right? So since morning to night, every one of us, we directly or indirectly generate the data, so much of data. Now imagine only a single individual is generating that huge amount of the data in a day, and imagine over the period of time, and imagine globally how much data would be, isn't it? There will be huge amount of the data which would be generated because of all this transaction, because of all this digitalization. I know, like 2 decades back, there was not much digitalized except bank or some railways and all. But over the period of time, so many applications came, internet revolution evolved, and because of that, everything got digitalized. And there is nothing without digitalization in our life, right? So that's how everything get digitalized. So much of data is being accumulated. So over the period of time, as the data is getting accumulated, so definitely there is a scope for us, sorry, scope for a companies, for us to go through the data, to understand the data, or to make a better business. Okay. So before I get into that, so let's see how the data is getting evolved. Sorry. Yeah. So if you see that, like the set of examples I gave, so the data is getting getting increased over the period of time. Like before 2010, there was not much zettabyte. Now in the 2025, like in the last year, by the last year, so it almost crossed 200 zettabytes, right? So that's how the data getting generated hugely over the period of time. As you see, from decade to decade, year to year, more and more applications are getting digitalized, more and more data getting generated. And if you see the huge amount of the data that is getting generated, now you see the significance of the data. Okay, how the data is getting used now. Okay, now say suppose if you have a shopkeeper. Okay, so if you have a shopkeeper in your street, a small time vendor, okay, and at the end of the day, what he does is he does all sales. Okay, all sales he does. And then what he'll do before he closes his shop, a shopkeeper, what he do? You can speak in Telugu as well. Actually, I will also try to use some Telugu or some other language in between. Okay, don't worry about it. So what exactly the people, the shopkeeper does, the shop owner in your street does before closes the shop? What he does?
He calculated all the transaction for the entire day.
Very good. Yes. So for today, even though it does not have any digital things to check, but still he will try to assess how much money got collected in the what do you call in that what do you call in
Per day.
general per day gala. I mean to say. So for today, how much he got the entire transaction. Also, not only does that, he also checks
What is
which
the
items got sold a lot today and which items got sold and which items got getting attraction, which items are not getting attraction, and which items needs to be removed from the counter, which items needs to be exposed on the counter on the front side of the shop, right? So these are all the assessment he does. He just doesn't calculate the money and randomly go and pick up dal, rava, and oil, milk, and all. He doesn't do that. If he do that, then he's gone. Okay, even the shopkeeper also do the analysis, proper analysis. Then only he can increase his sales and he can increase his revenue, right? So now imagine a simple shopkeeper in your street is doing the way I was explaining. Imagine about a big corporate companies like say suppose Reliance, a DMart, or ICICI Bank, or what do you call this Apollo Hospital, right? Now imagine what they do actually, right? So a small time keeper who does not have any digitalization of the business is thinking in that way. So imagine about the huge number of the large corporate giants what they does actually, isn't it? So in the similar way this guy does, they also do that. So because if you take a what do you call it Swiggy, say suppose, okay, Swiggy gets so many orders every day. Okay, like I order dosha, some order one guy orders Mysore bhaji in the morning, one guy want to have only just salad, one guy want to have juices, one guy wanted to have ice cream itself in the morning, one guy wanted to have just a biryani for morning 10 o'clock breakfast, isn't it? So so many types of different types of transaction, different type of cuisines, different type of food habits, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, everything else, right? So Swiggy just doesn't take the orders and serve it. No, it doesn't do that. So the period of time they analyze, okay, this particular area called Amirpet or KPHB is getting more and more orders between 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And this particular area called Madhapur is not getting many orders over the weekend because of the IT crowd holiday. And this particular area, like in the Miapur, this particular 5 to 7 p.m., getting more orders for mirchi bhaji and snacks and all. Isn't it? So these are all analysis, they do that. So based on that, say suppose 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., more and more, suppose in the weekend, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., getting more biryani orders, they will try to add more and more restaurants. If restaurants are not onboarded, they will try to add more restaurants, and also they will add more workforce around that places so that there will be more places and more what do you call more people, more agents who can deliver the food without wasting the time, right? So that's how. And also say suppose a particular day, suppose a festival day is like in a serial and not getting much attraction to the Swiggy and all, so what he does, so they'll try to promote, okay, buy one get one or any item 49 rupees. Okay, so that's more attraction. Suppose they are onboarding a new restaurant, I opened a new restaurant, then they will request us so that give some discount, okay, buy one get one, or give 50% or 100 rupees on the volume of 500 rupees. Okay, so that they will get attraction and also they will also get some transactions, isn't it? So imagine about the way of analyzing the data. Okay. Now, similarly, suppose an hospital is there. Suppose Apollo Hospital. Apollo Hospital just randomly doesn't do any operation. Say, suppose over the period of time, there is a period where more and more heart-related diseases are coming now, right? In the even 20 plus 25 people, 25 age people also getting heart attacks and all. Okay. Then try to add more budget to the revenue around the research on the heart and also recruit more and more good doctors. And say, suppose there is a place, Sikidrabad is getting more and more patients from that all the way to Jubilees. Then let's open a branch in Secunderabad. Isn't it? So this is how all the data they will try to get. Okay, whatever the data you order, whatever the data you give the patient, or the order that you give in the Swiggy, they will accumulate all the data. They will try to understand what exactly it does, and based on that, they will take the business decisions. Okay, so some data might be in a Oracle, some data might be in some file, some data might be ERP, some data might be web. Okay, different kind of data would be there for if you take of it any enterprise, isn't it? Now, what the company does, what the enterprise or what the organization does, organization is going to take all the data, every data, process it, refine it, and making it ready for analysis. So once the analysis is done, then they will take the business decision. Okay, then how this data getting picked up, how this data getting processed, how the data is getting transferred into a meaningful observation. Okay, that's what the data engineer does. Okay, then how the data engineering is helping, if I summarize all my previous examples, Apollo Hospital, the shopkeeper, or sorry, the Swiggy, Zomato. So what exact data engineering helps? So data engineering helps to get the business insights. As I mentioned, it helps the organizations or enterprises to collect all those huge amount of the data, store it and process it so that it will be useful for the business decision making, isn't it? And also data driven decision making. So based on the data, they will take the better decision. As I mentioned, Swiggy is getting more orders in a particular place, or Swiggy is getting more vegetarian orders from one of the vegetarian, the people where more vegetarian stays there. Then get the facts, try to analyze, and try to check if you can onboard more and more vegetarian restaurants around that, isn't it? So that's how you take the data, and that helps the organization to make the decision based on the actual data. Okay, competitive advantage. So over the period of time, what happens? These are all helps to extract the values so that they can gain the advantage in the market. Okay, suppose if the Swiggy is not doing anything, just taking the order, and say suppose myself I am going to Swiggy, giving some order, and Swiggy is delivering the food to you. Okay, so this is happening. Swiggy is not doing anything, just collecting the money and filling their pockets. So what happens over the period of time? If he's not doing any innovative ideas, it will stop. The people tend to go to the other competitive, that is Zomato. Then Zomato will gain the profits, isn't it? So that's how it gives the advantage to be in a competition so that they can be more profits. Okay, and also to get the customer insights. Okay, which order is getting, as I mentioned, like which area is getting more orders, what is the item is getting more orders. Like if you see that Hyderabad is getting many biryanis, and if you see that one Zepto guy ordered around some lakhs of rupees in a day for some of the some scheme or something, isn't it? So it also used to helps to get the customer insights, and based on that they can take the better decision, better customer experience. So also, like say suppose the Swiggy is getting like around 30 minutes is taking to deliver in a 5 kilometers. So every time it's getting 30 minutes, 35 minutes, people will lose interest and they will switch to the other one. But the Swiggy understand the customer behavior or customer response. Okay, then they will try to add more persons so that the waiting time will be very less, isn't it? So these are all like interlinked. And real-time processing also. So data engineering also helps to real-time processing. What is the real-time processing? Say suppose whenever there is a data, the data stored over there, and it helps to uh, analytics. But sometimes the data needs to be analyzed immediately. Say suppose there is a credit card, you are using banking transaction. Okay, say suppose one guy like you lost your purse, wallet. Okay, one guy like steals your credit card and do all the transactions. Okay, if the bank thinks that, hey, I will process today's Nitin credit card details only today 11:30 p.m. before closing the day, so what happens? All the transactions will be done, the money will be misused, he will going to lose the money. So that should not be the case, right? So the company need to analyze, the bank should continuously analyze the data and process the data and take a decision. So that's called real-time data processing. As soon as the data generated, it used for that. And also your power system. So the power you get the current into your home. So it randomly doesn't get. Okay, they also monitors closely. Hey, the suppose 100 what do you call 100 houses are there. Okay, suddenly it spike in the summer because of the ACs. Okay, what happens? They continuously monitor the grid and they try to see what is the shortage of the electricity, what they need to do to satisfy this demand in the summer. So these are all the things they need to do. That's called real-time processing, so that they can quickly respond to the decisions. So also it improves the performance, streamline the entire process, so that the business will be good, right? So this is how a data engineering helps to in the day-to-day market for the organization. Then what exact data engineering does? I was talking about data engineering does this, data engineering does this. So what is exact data engineering actually do that actually? So if you remember, as I mentioned, so there'll be so much of the data need not to be a what do you call the a separate source or one source. The data might be different sources. So what exact data engineer does? So you get all this data, process it, refine it using various technologies, various platforms, various tools, and give the processed data to the business analyst or business management. Looks like there is some issue with my mouse. Just bear with that. Sorry for that. But yeah, so there is a business analyst or management who does get this data, XYZ data, and analyze the data, and they will take the decision based on that. So that's how this entire framework, entire solution is being designed or managed by the data engineer. So who is the one who designs, builds, maintains the data infrastructure to allow the organization so that they can store the data, they can process the data, they can analyze the data. Okay, so who are the ones who does that? Who are the ones? So at the end of the day, who does this analytics? Either a Power BI developer or some Tableau developer who's called business analyst, also like who generate the reports, and the data scientist who analyze the data and create the try to help to create the machine learning models, isn't it? And also the CTOs, sorry, the CEOs or marketing leads, sales heads who want to track the sales and take the decision. So these are all people needs to understand. So data engineers first go to them, talk to them, try to understand what kind of the data they need, how frequently the data need, what format they need, okay, how fast the data need. So they work with them, try to understand the requirement, then finally they'll make sure those data is getting ready for that. Okay, so this data processing, whatever they do, they use various technologies and try to give the data. So this entire thing is called a pipeline. So getting the data, transfer data, whatever I draw a simple one, this is of course, so this is called a pipeline. So this pipeline is being developed by data engineers who extract, transform and load the data from various sources to the ultimate, the final layer, that's called warehouse or lakes. Okay, so that's what the data engineer do, and also he ensures that the data is very data do has the quality, there is no bad data, and also only some users who needs to access the data, they accessing the data, suppose there is a credit card information, okay, in the backend, and if the data analyst or some person who is not authorized to see the data, if you see the that credit card details, what happens, there will be a misuse. So that is the reason he also ensures only relevant people uses the data or access the relevant data. Right? So also like when the transaction, when the data is getting performed, when data is getting loaded, he also makes sure that the data is getting loaded properly and there are no hiccups, there is no performance issues. Say suppose every day, suppose like a job, a pipeline is getting executed in 1 hour. Suddenly it became 1 hour to 2 hours. Then it is going to check that what is the reason, is the volume of the data increased, are there any compute issue? So these are all the things they will try to compute it. Okay, so basically if I summarize, data engineer is the one who is going to play critical role in decision making process, whether the data analytical project or any data science project, machine learning project, any project, whatever you take, without data engineer there is no data actually, there is no data analytics, there is no data science, there is no machine learning, isn't it? Because that is who is the one who is going to make sure to give those data to the end user. So that is the reason more and more data related projects, data science, data analytics, AI, ML project, data analytics project, more and more demand for the data engineers as well. So without data engineering, there is no data. So that is the reason from last 7-8 years, if you see, there is more and more demand for the data engineers compared to any other hyped categories. Isn't it? Now, if you see the fastest growing technology, data engineering is almost like 60, 50 plus percent is getting occupied by the data engineering professionals. I mean to say the fastest growing what do you call job market, and followed by the other guys, AML. Right? So that is the reason the data engineering is kind of a plays an important role, and good to get into a data engineering if you have any like if you want to scale up your career or getting into any job or something, right? And this data engineering, as I mentioned, so they are developers, they are going to build the pipelines and all. So the technology can be anything. So one can do a simple SQL. Sorry, one can do a Python, one will do Snowflake, one will do Databricks, one will do ADF, one will do Synapse, one will do Fabric, one will do Oracle, one will do basic SQL Server. Anything, the concept is same, only the technologies changes. Right? So before I get into the things, does anyone has any questions? I know I spoke a lot about the basics and the importance of this. Does anyone any questions before I proceed? ఎవరికైనా doubts ఉన్నాయా?
Please carry on.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chandramouli. So if anyone has any doubts, please raise a doubt. And also, if you feel shy, you can always put your question in the chat. There is something called chat in your Zoom. Open the chat and you can type the message that will be directed to me. All right. Now, who can be a data engineer actually? Who can start? Who can get into? Suppose I am the one, I just passed out from the college. Can I get into data engineering? Hey, I was doing all this .NET application or what do you call .NET developer and also front end developer, full stack developer. But now the jobs are getting reduced. Can I get into data engineering? Hey, throughout my period, like 10 to 15 years, I'm a QA guy, and because of AI and all, the QA jobs are getting reduced. Can I get into data engineering? Hey, I'm just passed out of the college, and is it okay if I get into data engineering? Hey, I'm a product manager from past 10 years. I don't have any data related knowledge. Can I get into data engineering? Yes, all this set of people can get into data engineering very easily, provided they do have the interest, they do have the passion, they do have what do you call eagerness, eager to learn the things and get into the things. So these are all set of people can get into data engineering. Okay, so even though I listed down the roles over here, but everyone, anyone, especially database developer, MSBA developer who are working on the legacy courses, and now everything getting upgraded into the cloud, of course, from past 3-4 years, if you see. So that is the reason it is good to get into upscale your skill set and get into the data. If you're a database developer or ETL developer, if you're DBA, so DBAs always already have some of the knowledge. ETL developer has the knowledge around the course, sorry, around the data, so they can get into data average. And if you're a big data developer, yes. So big data is almost, there's no big data as such currently, So everything is become data engineer. So if you're a traditional big data developer, Spark and all, so it's good to get into data engineering. Data analyst, so if you're only just doing some reporting, that doesn't work in the future long run, right? So that is the reason it's always good to be upgraded into data analyst. And if you're .NET developer, front-end developer, these different set of developers, always good to get into data engineering, because the amount of changes are happening. And of course, QA, as I mentioned, even the fresher. So because some companies like have tons of data engineering projects, even they are getting freshers also to get the jobs done. Right? So this is how everyone, whoever has the passion, interest, eagerness to learn and getting into the data, you can do that. And that in the world, the most promising job role is data and AI, isn't it? So if you're in data, there is no there is no issue. There won't be any concern or issue for your job, at least for next decade. As long as as long as human exists, as long as the technology exists, the data exists. As long as the data exists, all the data related jobs would be there. Okay, the most demanding thing. Okay, so What exactly data engineering? So I spoke about all theoretical, what exactly he does, how he helps, how the data is getting evolved, right? So how the demand is, right? So many things I was discussing, right? But what exactly data engineering does in a technology? If I going into a one step ahead, what exactly happens in the data engineering? Okay, so let's talk about the simple uh, diagram which I had it here. Okay, it's a very basic one which I created like around 5-6 years back, but still it has its relevance. So that is the reason I keep using the same thing so that people can understand very easily. Now, if you see here, the left side, there are different set of data. One is business, customer structured data. One is unstructured data, logs, files, media, business, customer. So many apps are there, isn't it? So different kind of data, but because like as I was saying, the data might be different things over there. 1 minute, excuse me. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah. So if I take any company, any organization, they'll be having different set of data, right? So one guy will, one data would be in the log files, one data would be in some Excel files, one data would be some ERP, one data will be Oracle, one data might be in SQL Server, one data might be in some, what do you call, Delta, right? Can be anything. Now, data engineering, the first step in a data engineering is to get the data. Okay, to ingest the data. Ingest in the sense extracting the data is the first important step, because trying to understand how the source data is there and trying to establish a connection to that and trying to understand what amount of the data I need to get and try to understand at what interval I need to get the data. So these are all plays very important role. And if you miss any step in getting this data, the subsequent phases will fail. So that is the reason ingest is very important phase here. So ingest is the first phase where exactly you are going to connect to the sources and get the data, extract the data, and you stored somewhere you so that you can process further. Okay, ingest the data and store the data. I'll talk about these technologies later. Store the data so that it is ready for storing. So once this data gets stored from multiple sources into a common common format, because some data might be in CSV, some data might be in Parquet, some data might be structured, unstructured, different kind of data. So what do? You try to get the data and store the data into a unified format. So once the data is get stored, then you will format it. Okay, that means transform the data. So in the prepare enter and transform the data in the sense, like say there might be some blanks would be there, then try to fill the data quality checks. There might be some compute A plus B equal to C. Okay, so these are all kind of transformation you will do so that it will be ready for the end user. Then you will store the data finally into a data warehouse layer. Okay, data warehouse can be anything. Okay, so once the data gets stored, then finally the users go through that and understand the data and take the business decision, right? So this is how the important phases of the data: ingest, store, prepare and train, model and serve. So these are the 4 different phases of a data engineering. Whether you take Azure data engineering, a GCP data engineering, Google data engineering, sorry, AWS data engineering, Oracle data engineering, anything, any data engineering you take, same set of principles, same set of phases, just that the technology changes. That's it. Okay. Here I use something called Azure Data Factory to ingest the data. So Azure Data Factory is one of the good, best ingestion and orchestration tool, because it can connect to multiple sources and it has the power to connect to multiple sources, various types of sources, and get the data into the system. Okay, this is called data factory. And here I'm using something called Azure Data Lake Storage to store the data. So it's called also ADLS. So ADLS is the technology, ADLS is a storage which can accommodate all kind of data in a good partition manner, so that it is easy for the people to read the data, store the data, and also it provides good performance to pick up the data and read the data. Then here, for processing the data or transforming data, I'm using something called Databricks. So Databricks is a Spark-based technology which most of the people they do use for processing the data. Then here I'm using called Synapse. Okay, now Synapse is like not existing. It is there, but people not using much. But here Synapse I use to store the data because I do have the data. I do need to have store the data in a data warehousing. So I am using something called Azure Synapse Data Warehouse. Okay, so this is how the technologies I use here, but it need not be same. So sometimes the technology is like for prepare and train also I can use the data factory, and for storing I can use the SQL server, and for final layer if the data is very less I might use some normal technology. Sometimes I might use Snowflake. Sometimes I might use a simple Azure Data Lake itself for storing the data. It all depends on the various reasons. That means the level, the amount of the data, the complexity of the transformation, the speed in which the data needs to be ingested, and also the costing of the project, the number of people working on this project. So these are all determines the technologies. Okay, there is no hard and fast tool that always I will be using data factory only for the ingestion. Always I'll be using Databricks only for the transformation. Depending upon the various factors, the technologies changes, right? So this is how a data engineering phase involved, and data engineering is responsible for all these things: ingesting the data, store the data, process it, and model and solve the data. Okay, and if I just expand the previous slide, so you do the collection ingestion from the various sources. It can be IoT device, Parquet data, web data, smart data. Then you store the data like in the data lake, okay, relational data, event hub or stream system, Synapse Analytics. Then you transform the data using Databricks, Synapse, based on depending upon the requirement, of course. Then you finally store the data in the Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, Synapse Analytics, as I was saying. Finally, you make it ready for the consumption of the data, right? So that's how a data engineering involves various phases. We'll talk about all this in the next sessions, but just I try to give some of the basics. Okay, so if I summarize all this into a simple words, so it's all about BI plus big data. Data engineering is all about kind of adding business intelligence to big data. What is big data? Big data is nothing but the data which is huge in the volume and also in the multiple formats. That's called big data. So trying to apply business intelligence on big data, you're going to analyze the data, then you will ingest the data, you process the data, finally you store the data and make sure you give the right access on the right data to the right people, right? So this is how the data engineering summary. So what you need to learn to become a good data engineer? Yeah. So what exactly the data engineering all about then? Tell me. So the first thing is SQL. Whenever there is a data, if you hear the data, then SQL will be like what do you call? SQL will be there. When you say data, SQL will be there. SQL must be there, isn't it? So that is the reason learning SQL is kind of a good to be a data engineer, because you'll be involved, you'll be writing queries, you'll be managing large query data sets. So that is the reason you need to have SQL. And data modeling, okay, not like a pro data model, but at least you need to understand the relations, how the data is organized. And also you need to have the ability, you need to learn the basics of ETL terminology, like what is ETL, what is BI, what exactly the phases would be, because this is kind of a subset of data engineering. And also, as I mentioned, there is no rule that always you use one technology. So that is the reason you should know different tools, different platforms, different libraries, so that you'll understand what tool need to be used, which platform you need to use, when to use what. So these are all the understanding you will get once you understand or learn the tools. And also you should have good understanding of the data from source to final data. Okay, that means like you should have the overview or understanding how the data is flowing through. Okay, so how I need to make this data so that it can be consumed easily by the end user. Okay, these are all the things I need to. So for that, you need to have the good analytical skills. And of course, cloud. So because data is all about processing the data in the cloud. So Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, everything has the cloud. But in this case, in our course, you need to have the cloud basic, that is the Azure cloud data. And of course, the most important, the Python, because most of the use cases nowadays, apart from SQL, Python also being used. Okay, it's not that Python is mandatory to use, but some, if you talk about Databricks and all, Python being used, so that is the reason learning Python is so good. So as part of our course, we'll be also teaching the cloud basics. Start with the cloud basics, because before you get into data engineering, you must understand cloud. Without cloud, you cannot perform anything. So that is the reason you'll be having the cloud basics, and also ETL BI basics. What is ETL? What is BI? What is the technology? Okay, and of course SQL basics for a few days, and also Python basics for a week. Okay, so these are all the set of learnings would be there as part of the course, apart from the actual data engineering technologies as well. So that if you are coming from a fresh mind, a college graduate, or if you are coming from non-technical, technical, or non-data background, still you can get into the thing, get into data engineering very easily once you get into, once you go through all this basics. Okay, so as I mentioned, data engineering can be anything. It can be a Google Cloud, it can be a Azure, it can be a AWS, it can be anything, isn't it? So always a certification would be advantage. The carry forward of it just helps to add more weightage to your resume, and also assess yourself how you are performing, even though it's different from working. So there is a certification called DP700, which is Microsoft Certified Fabric Data Engineering Associate, which helps to manage analytical solution, transfer data, monitor and optimize analytics. This also helps, and which we will be helping as well. Okay, we'll talk about what exactly Fabric, why this term is being used. Let me talk about it. Right? So this is a certification which can be helpful. Now, the most important thing which I need to talk about, what exactly you are going to learn then? What are the technologies? When I say data, hey, are you data engineer? Then what exactly the technology is all about? You need to know that, right? So there will be set of courses that you need to understand, that you need to learn to become a good data engineer in Azure. So the first is storage account. So storage account is just a scalable cloud storage for storing the data and accessing the data. That is the first thing that you need to understand. And of course, SQL. So SQL integrated with the cloud Azure. So that is Azure SQL. So we need to understand how the relational database works and how to set up the database, what are the various operations of the database that you need to understand. And Azure Data Factory, of course, without Azure Data Factory, nothing, because there is a powerful ingestion tool. So where you can create, schedule, and orchestrate the data pipelines. And of course, the most powerful, which is gaining momentum, if you see the last 2 years, there's the Fabric. So Fabric is a distributed system platform, which is kind of a holistic platform to perform all your data engineering operations under one radar, under the one hood. Okay, so this is also very important, gaining popularity. And Azure Synapse Analytics. So Synapse Analytics was there. You can, I should not say, but you can say like the previous version of the Fabric, like till like if you see 4 years back, the majority of the projects are getting done in the Synapse Analytics. But now Synapse Analytics slowly fading away, and Fabric is occupying that market. So, but still, just we'll try to understand what is the Synapse Analytics, which is kind of a integrated service that makes big data and data using for a unified platform. The most important, the most demanding nowadays in the job market is the Databricks, so which is a Spark-based platform for the engineers to process the data, right? So this is also being done. So if you want to become data engineer, the most important thing will be storage, SQL, Fabric, Databricks, and of course Databricks. Okay, Fabric is like an integrated platform. So within the platform, even the data factory will be there in the Fabric. Even the Databricks, not Databricks, the Spark-based application would be there. The storage related data content would be there. You can take the decision, and also of course Power BI also integrated to the Fabric. So these are all the related things will be helpful to become a good data engineer. So over the period of time, next 8 weeks, so we will be going through all these things step by step and try to understand the first the theoretical thing, then try to understand the practical, like how these things work, then try to add more and more real-time experience. So all this course would be less theory, more practical. Okay, if I keep on talking, doesn't make any sense. So that is the reason, except storage account, for rest of the things will be more and more what do you call, the hands-on training would be there, hands-on, and that is the reason I just make sure you join every session and try to practice the things. And based on my 20 years of experience, I will try to add more relevant, up-to-date scenarios so that you don't need to go back and search in the net and Google and try to understand the what do you call the important things. Okay, so if you just attend this 8-week session and try to follow everyday content and whatever the things that we do, that means whatever the assignments also which we do, and if you practice that, and also at the end of the 6 weeks or so, we'll be having a real-time project which I'll be explaining. So that you need to do. I'm not going to do that. And if you do that, and if you get any doubts, I'll be there always to support you. And if you do the real-time scenarios, real-time things, so definitely you're good to get into a job market, right? So these are all about the Azure data engineering. Does anyone has any questions or anything?
You mentioned about the project, right?
Yes.
So we'll be doing a project regarding it, right?
Yes, yes. So we will be giving a real-time scenario which involves all the important technologies. So which you will be doing, because I'm going to give the design and you need to implement it over the period of time. And if you get stuck, definitely I'm there to help. But it all depends upon how passionate, how interested you are to get the things done and understand, learn.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording and you can ask offline doubts as well before I get into things.